Yo yo u yamiya koyomoto yashi kayani. Miyasaratu, hello, hello. Welcoming in everyone to this Sacral Saturday. I left in a pinned comment feeling very much like this is like deeply, deeply physical codes. A lot of release out of the sosis, a lot of release out of the fascia, out of the like iliosacral zone, the coccyx area in your lower back and spine, releasing a lot of trauma, a lot of tension, a lot of sort of reversal current in this area. And I know that people use these lives in many different ways, but if you feel called to use it as a healing session, very, very powerful to do so. Taking nice deep breaths in and out of the center of your being, allowing that center to expand, allowing the mind to rest, aligning our will with God's will, aligning our will with love, accepting ourselves as love. Inimayo nuyun chokoni, sinianayani konoyun choni kanian sania mayo tuma. Oh, Araisi, I'm so happy you're here. Yayani koyom shiritis. The last week has felt very, very expansive. I feel like every time I talk about this, I'm like, this week is crazy. And it just continues. We just continue to expand. We continue to release so much. We continue to see so much more. We get to such deeper and deeper levels. So yes, absolutely use this to get even deeper and release from those depths. Kaya mayani koyon soni tap tianayan shamna konoyono rohia yasini tiasanya. And really let yourself release. Often we want so much for the release to come, but we don't realize we're sort of still resisting against it. Don't be afraid to look at the center. The center of your being is love. We have this egoic idea that the center is hiding something horrible. The ego is lying to you about that. The center is God. The center is creation. The center is source. The center is love. That is what you are. That is what all of your illusions hide. So let that expand. Get into that center in the breath and let that center expand. Since we're focusing on the sacral, you can imagine that center to be in the center of your sacral center, breathing in and out, expanding that light. Yamayanum narahitis, expanding that. This theme has been coming up so much for me lately, this like fire, water, these two sort of polarities coming together. And the sacral, I think, is traditionally ruled by water, but absolutely we can think about the fire of creation in that way as well. So sort of allowing whatever that means for you to come through from within your being. Himayanuyo konoyom dais nitrihanis. You know, that it might be, that's what plasma appears to us as. Kayanayo tosum chanian sikana roayanayan soyashu manayani sondokoriami kayin doyosikaya shaya nunum dakana. Sianayan yon tor hina yom noi sin chinis taes natanikanain. Aya koroam masha kanasanaya nosonda. Shayanion soyanikin di pano son chin nanan tokamai sitaya. And there's been a cool message coming through lately as like the eye of all of these energetic centers, like opening the eye of the sacral, perceiving from this creative dimension and allowing it to ascend. Don't hold strict definitions of what we think this means. Let those limitations be released. Let definitions be released so that a new way can come through from that center. If you feel like at any point at this, when you are, if you're watching this live or if you are watching this later, if you feel like you have to like kind of move around, I forget what they call this in yoga, this Sufi something. If you feel like you have to kind of move this area around to help you kind of move that energy through. Just letting yourself kind of move as you feel called. It doesn't have to be in specific ways. They don't have to have names. They don't need to be yoga poses. Just however you feel called to sort of move. As always, if you feel when you're working with this work that you feel like just moving your hands, and at first, if you don't, you're just kind of, moving them around, you'd be surprised how much a little bit of allowance allows this sort of light code technology, this sort of more expanded way of orchestrating the field just will automatically come through you. It's not taught, it's what you allow. Kiamayanion toaniam sha konoyon tomain sokanayana torokanas. Shimi saninian homayani kanjeritis nisin siri torum. Big message of not being afraid of who you are. Kinamasun chokomo asani kani. Shini anai tiani kiana rayat. We are at one with every aspect of creation. Sini sonjo koni matan sonion soni kanishin indisi ti ki ani sion sotaya soe sheya saiki yami toyom nato ayasona shaya kom anaini anot oro in yom soro yoshon sisna shin sanien sio yakuyom no yakuyo taya shoyo kum naratin nanain naratu Sin Shanayan Soyami Saya Sho Tosum So Yashu Yakimayana Tummisini Kana Tus Shai Oyo Tummisa Yasho Yonam Nasi. It's kind of like letting the center wake up, letting all of your cells kind of wake up. If you're noticing warmth in that area, you might be noticing more energy in that area. But as always, this healing is directed by the self that knows. So if you're here and these specific messages don't feel maybe like they resonate with you so much, I really encourage you to take what comes in the meaning for yourself, like what you feel like you need, what you are picking up on for yourself, and go with that. Like, let your inner guidance be yours. This is always about listening to yourself and trusting yourself and knowing that the guidance that is coming from your own heart is very valid and is very right for you. And we are all living in different stories, right? So my story, the story that I'm living at this stage in my incarnation, might not be the same as yours. And so you go with it. It's all about claiming our own sovereignty, claiming our own authority over the orchestrations of the field that we are called in co-creation to move with. You don't have to be reliant on what somebody else is telling you of your spiritual self or of your record or of your field or of your beingness or of your lives. That is for you. And you can use whatever comes across your plate, comes across your whatever's coming across to you in whatever way, movies you watch, books you read, conversations you have with people, being outside in nature, building things, making things, whatever. It doesn't have to be strictly in what we would consider to be spiritual context. All things are spiritual contexts when you choose. And it's really about bringing that energy to every single thing we do. And understanding that everything is our spiritual teacher when we choose to see it that way, when we choose everything as a lesson in our release. That's up to us. And how beautiful that we don't need permission from anyone else to do it, and we don't need to wait for anyone else to tell us what it is, that we get to choose. How beautiful, how powerful we are. How free. Sinian nukuyom nayanin. Mayan yum no sun, he maini guyo tomayana toroka yasin zoyum shiriti, sio tokono ruya payasi, shini kian sanikanayas natatayana, mandrayayo tusum jaisi. I'm really hearing the birds, feeling lots of connection to the sort of animal kingdom around us, all of the spirits of the earth, all of the elemental forces of the universe, opening to our connection with them now. Kamayani konchom nato yom no shom saki. Yamorotis. Hello, hello. Hello, I'm so happy everyone is here. I hope everyone's having a beautiful Saturday. Thank you so much for joining me and joining each other. Hayana konoyom tagyon tosokina tishi. Fatima is like my mom's favorite name. Hianaya tuya korro haya sami santa kino hinto rokoni shini ansani kayani sindi koyanoko ai. Shini sanse kiniash. Sim sotomi nianian soni mayokom yashini kin somnatini hina yonoro sanandrahita yonosuto yoshu rupina matrain. Lots of clearing out through the left side, left vision, divine feminine vision. Simiya sunsokom maya noyomayini. Shini ondoroti sum shikini antatahina yensomahum maini shinikianas. Sain sor koya payani santati kinikinain. Hinian sanitayana tratikana shupaya sansakina trahin. Mien sanihinianaini or Io yokonoyom saya shanas nandrai hyom natana kiana trato somsai shikiaya. I know it can be hard to coordinate times. Everybody is all over the world, but how cool is it that we can connect and essentially be in this space together, but our bodies are all over the world. It's amazing. It's like one of the only cool things left about the internet. Kaya sutio porro kamayan jom nasan sa isa tayanika na trihin. Imayan jokomas urup tiaptaya tikanam nain. Sim socorro kanam na shanaya satya. Lots of energy coming through to assist us now. You might not feel this in this hour that we are together. It might not release right now in this hour, because some of this is so deeply held and compounded across time. And understand that Spirit really wants us to move through in gentleness. And so it's in my experience, and even when I've asked for for it to essentially be like blasted out, because I'm just like, well, come on, let's move this. The message is always Spirit would have you move in a gentle way and have it gently be dissolved from you. It is, kind of our belief in being met with equal force. I guess it's sort of what's coming out, that it would need to be something very dramatic in order for it to be like a true healing, that it would need to be like, oh my goodness, like overwhelmed with change or something. I don't know if I'm making sense, but like that we just kind of allow it to gently be removed, because we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves with any sort of overloading experience. Hello, my friend. I'm so happy you guys are here. But understand also, when we want to see, we see all that we have made on top of the truth in order to have it moved. We must recognize this, right? We talk about this all the time. So if we're holding on to very, very difficult expressions, very deeply held traumas, right? We have to work on our strength to see it and hold it, so that we're not taken again by the illusion, because that's all living in time, right? This genetic code is essentially time held and running at all places, and that's like what creates the emotional body and the physical body and the mental body and all of these things as we know it now, held in time. So understand, it's not like theoretical the way that we talk about trauma healing, right? That you have to be in a space of honor and love and strength in yourself to let it flow from you, to actually release it, because you're going to have to reckon with it as it's released, and you need to be the one who is willing to see it in the eyes of love and not be moved by delusion and belief in the reality of the trauma, right? We need to shift our mind to seeing the true for true and the illusions as illusions. And when we are able to see past through the illusion into the light of the truth at the center of everything, then really big change happens. And we're not afraid to look, and we're not hiding from it. And we let that move. And we don't get upset with ourselves if we're still feeling pain, if we're still feeling resistance. We don't, I know this might sound counterintuitive, but you don't try to get rid of it. You see through it into its unreality and understand it's not there to begin with. That's sort of the difference. And when we feel like we're plagued with pain or tightness or limitations on our creativity or disconnection from joy, disconnection from life itself, disconnection from people around us or living beings around us, all of the field, it's very easy to want so much for it to go away. But it's a fine line for us to not fall into learning about ourselves in illusion and like walking through the illusion. And so that's sort of what takes practice. Yamaya no oru inein so kimi hinian tuyo ko. Yamaya toro ikin so yoshini sin sani tanian sitish. Work with spirit, not against it. And understand that you're not looking alone. Hiniam nahoro kai somjakina san sati san shi. Sinianaya nionto yamisani kaini yayato rakasa tashaya. Simayan dukamaya tia yekia. Shini sanaini kanian ziri te yusion. Sini shani kaini kayani kayaya toso. Yanayotuin yashunion su. Siotun yamainian tota. Yabayo kunoyon sumishanayan satayan yukoyon dukamai si. What's coming through now is like assistance and allowing yourself to see it from a higher or more expanded dimensional perspective. And it's almost as if you're looking at it from above and you're seeing yourself as the one who kind of projected it and made it, in conjunction with all of the other beings that are here in this realm, in this universe. But that you have the ability to see it from a larger perspective where you are not constricted from within it. And like, it is hard to describe, but you then see that from both ways. You see yourself from the center of it, which is the center of all being, but you don't identify yourself as being the one who is stuck in that situation or stuck in that body or stuck in that lifetime or stuck in that belief. And then further in, further out, right? Seeing from all directions, letting yourself see it from all perspectives, like just letting the limitations on your perception, on your consciousness be removed. Kiamaya toro kina shini sensani kanaya ni tayanaya to yani shini mayin so toyum nai saya kiani tayan sani kayani to yakiana. Mini shini noya sensini tayan soya shumsaki. Himayani yani kayani toyonori yonori toyonori kayas natranin do kumi shini sien soyashia. Siotokinas notrona in sonjokoni masniti. Hinkiani morkinin do ini tionsokina dratisiat. This idea of plasma also still coming through. I do see that this is like more of the physicality of where we are expanding into. So allowing that sort of plasmic, liquid, fire, water, light to get into all the nooks and crannies of this very discrete form, this very separated form that we have made. Just let it in, let it in. Relax your mind. Don't think about it. Don't think about anything. Let yourself go, let your mind go. And even if you just focus on whatever plasma, when I say that, comes through in your awareness, just letting that move through you. Kimoyo no yimshi yoni yoyo no koyami kayani sanayanatoya. Sini sani kanyam siti shini. This is very, very connected to vision. Hyanayan sotishini kainium notice, these sort of eye of the womb even. You know, we've talked about the eye of the heart, the eye of the womb, the eye of the root, the eye of the sun, this seeing from all directions, this letting that come out and be. Kianumam shin kum sigani tani nono shinyani. Yannasun tatusum shavoni tatuyum yakyan. Soti tani nyum doti nashan. Satosun jokonati si. Siotosun chiki sontokana. Shatusaya sitasa. Shitasa. Konatratinin tatehishikasa. Shini sana traina kinatun. Shini sanandrais nia sonja kinandrais. I mean, this is really coming through as like trauma in the sacral. And however you take that to mean for yourself, it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be any number of combinations of things throughout time. Placing clouds in your awareness, placing clouds in your vision. And this is coming through especially towards how you see yourself as a creative being. This is also coming through as misaligned ways of believing what it means to take care of other people or be taken care of, or what you are maybe deserving of receiving in terms of care. Hinikana shinikini. You know, I've been reading Ovid's Metamorphosis because I just felt really, really called to it, because the Metamorphosis is the changing forms, and it feels significant to sort of, that was written like 2,000 years ago, and all of these sort of archetypes and relationships that we have with different dimensional beings, and sort of this theme that comes through. The Metamorphoses are stories that are Greek and Roman, and he wasn't the only one who told them, right? So they are like in the canon. But this theme comes up over again and again of like women getting raped for being beautiful and then being punished for it by being mutated into a different like animal or part of like nature, but being like distorted and manipulated and punished for essentially just existing in beauty. And whether or not we believe those stories are things that like actually happened, I'm using air quotes, because when you see at these expanded levels, like it's either all actually happening or none of it's actually happening, right? So like if it's real for you, if you believe it and it's in the code, I really believe in, if it's fiction or not, that is irrelevant, because it's part of your worldview. It's part of your belief system. It's part of what's running, right? And all of the Western world runs off of those myths. They're all very deeply ingrained. Our relationships with the elemental forces, with nature, with what people believe deities are, or star beings, or whatever beings in different dimensions. There's a lot of fear there, and there's a lot of guilt and shame. And that's shame on the creative center. A lot of these stories come through as like warnings of like very distorted stories, and warnings of like not, of almost like knowing your place and not trying to express abilities that might be considered like deity abilities, or like more expanded, or like that the gifts of what they would describe as God. When I say God, I just mean like the infinite formless divine beingness. But at all of these different dimensional levels, that gets all mixed up with what we believe God is. And if we are aligning ourselves with God, we're going to come up with a lot of fear of God and a lot of belief of vengefulness. And if we are aligning ourselves with all of creation, then a lot of fear is going to come up there because of what is so deeply held. And that's like so much of why I think exploring art and myth and archetypal story is so powerful for freeing ourselves, if we can see ourselves in certain aspects and see how maybe we can trace back in this sort of great undoing. I'm always talking about this undoing of time. If we can kind of trace those myths and stories back to our own genetic code, which in your personal manifestation in this incarnation may be different based on where you grew up or where you are in the world and your own myths and stories. But, when we take a sort of survey of all of them, there are themes that are just global, I guess. Well, it depends. I guess you could say universal. We don't know all of the beings of the universe in this incarnation, so I don't want to say that. But at least for our intents and purposes in this harmonic, this is what it means to heal multidimensionally. We are carrying around all of those stories, and in the way I see it, we do have relationships with these deities. They are just as real as other people walking around on earth. We are not our bodies. So we know that we are descending through time, further and further alterations, further and further discrete form density, further and further density. So if you think about, the way people are reconnecting with deity planes and light beings and angelics and elemental forces and diva spirits and aliens and all of this stuff, that if we believe that's possible and we're sort of undoing time and going backwards, that we would be sort of reuniting, and that they did actually live that way, and it wasn't just myth. So that all needs to be kind of revealed and reckoned with and forgiven. So I hope this is helpful. I hope this is resonating with everyone, because when we do this kind of universal healing all together with people from different cultures and people living in different stories and different incarnations and all of these things, what I, as Eva on Earth, am learning from might not be the same stories that you guys are. And certainly the codes are not specific to that. And they're not specific to any one time. And so the more we kind of that's why in most of my videos, I don't go into super detail like that, because I think it places I think we have to be really careful, because I can see the power of our mind, and I can see how what we project outward by proclamation, like how people say it's casting spells, right? Spelling is casting, everything you do is doing that. So then you have to sort of be really mindful of what you choose to share and what you choose to extend out into the field, because that's coding the field, that's orchestrating it. So when we sit down to be healed, to know ourselves healed, we really want to just open ourselves up to the one light of the truth that we all are. And then whatever information comes through, that we just use as symbol and we use as neutral tools, but we don't grasp onto ourselves in meaning, in true meaning there. They must be used to sort of make sense of ourselves, because our brains work in story and physics is understood in story as well. But, we really want to claim ourselves for all that we are, not just little pieces, but all that we are, because then we can connect to everything and everywhere you go, all around the world. Everywhere you go and everywhere you go in your consciousness, you meet yourself there, because you're not limiting who you can contact based on whatever ideas that you have about yourself. I don't really think that light codes can be translated. That's sort of what I was just going off on. I don't know if I would even say I come up with it. It just kind of comes through. So yes, in contemplation, yes, in practice, yes, in communication with all life, all reflection. It's all sort of just the self being reflected back. There's a bird party going on in the patio. Kayani koyomoru isani shini kian sarihis. But there are codes. I don't see discreetly in that way. So it just sort of becomes like a great dance of current for all of the things that I'm experiencing. Kimayani no tomai shini sani kanayan shana toyam nakoni kaini kana trayatot kaya shu kanamaya konoyato korrukan sarayosonchayasi sion soru iya yetina yono komiani kiani kano ishimoto yantakaraki yatisare isiatani shinain sona kana tatayonot Oaisi ayutioni shiasiaki amini intinyan hosoyo shonoyen sonakinain imatoko roitio sukoam shinitasi kayani yanayato kaini ayasuyoncho sinato maya torro konoyonto miti imiayo toku yonoshinayasa sindato konoyoncho koni tai nitin dokomoyo sinishiono yosaya. Because I think, because language is something that I've always been super interested in. I studied speech language pathology at NYU when I went to college, and I've just been really interested in linguistics and that kind of thing. And I was actually just having a really interesting conversation with somebody about language as it is and where we are in time and how much it is reflexive of the density we live in and how hard it can be to talk about some concepts because we just don't have the words for it. And it's not coming out the way that we mean, and it just doesn't cover the full breadth of experience, and it's really just sort of reflective of the beliefs that we hold about ourselves in separation and not in unity. So I think what's so beautiful about the vocal code, as I call it, is that it frees us from understanding in limitation. And if you allow yourself to sort of just be moved and allow yourself to be kind of reorchestrated by it, knowing that it's coming from you. There is no one else. There's nowhere else for it to come. It's coming from the one self. It's just coming from the one self. There's no other place that you can really use it to expand instead of trying to catch it and limit it in the way that we sort of automatically do in lower dimensional ego understanding. Kimiani koyonoko rukono shini kintaya sikani tani kana yonoma muncho konois. That might not be the most fun way. I know many people associate it with different beings and different planets and different realms and different angels and stuff, but I just don't see it that way. I see it as much, 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 much more than that. It's all of that at once. And if I tried to describe all of it, we'd be here for till the end of time. There's no way to do that. And I don't think that's what it's for. Hianayana koro kanamaya sonso kanishan saritoyo no koni payas nitis. And I'm losing people with that. Hinikayan chikia sikaya sa tiana kiamaya tiani kani toyoro. Hitasum shikis tatoyam nion sotisanitam. Iataya koro kanaya saya kyotokoyomo orokonaya tiniki. But I do think it does come through. It's just what you want to be participating with. As I see it, all of these sort of lower dimensional timelines, galactic war and that we're living out now, and you can perceive past that story. So why wouldn't you? That's how you free yourself from duality. You don't free yourself from duality by continuing to see yourself as a different being in a different dimension that's still playing out good against evil. You have to, if you want to know yourself free as you really are, if you want to see yourself in the light of the one truth so that you can really reclaim your co-creative ability with God, God doesn't see those things. We made those things up. So if you want to see like the being you were made to be, you've got to give those things up. And that doesn't mean that you won't perceive them ever, or that there won't be assistance in those realms or fields. But it's a lot of this work is seeing what attachment really means, and the difference between attachment and allowance. Hinein so kono koni mati son chokois, shom sakiteas natrato son chikinain sanat, kamatra korkoyom nakinain, hyom yashiki tayana waraya to son joyous son zokinatrain sekion sotasi. Shini kan sanando amayati sansayat, hinata son jokina sin siniti indarayo toya son jokina sansini kianati. Hionatumata sansayum shikiana. Kuma oro kumo sonzo kono santakin, shumisin sinindrihitit. Korro tis nandrahis nandayo shomsa kanandrahi kanandrihiti soyotomni kanati sionso kanataya. Himatoyomoria sianta. This is coming through as a lot about roles. You don't honor the role, you honor the essence. And we undo strict adherence to specific roles throughout time and being contained by roles, knowing ourselves through roles. Kumayando kinahin shini sansanandra to sonjakyasa, sion suyenshi, sion siashokin, yomoruin yoptokoni shini sansutta yamikina yanatana, yanaini andokain shitis nadrihiti kiai, yayani kai yayana union. Yetokori nandru timatantai, ikayanin dioporro kentaya tuyomorro itayanoshi, sinasun sokinandaya sunjomasan sana. Kipaono kininium noyon chinikin zanin yesin datiki, imikindayon yosunjakira isi kianas yosoyeshi, himayo no uimna kuyoko, chumason sonoshon sukien sinianyandahi. Hiana yontoko ashiasa. It's coming through as a deep, deep, deep cleanse. It's very, very beautiful, and I feel called to share. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Taos hum. There's a bunch of different places in the world that people will hear. Not everyone hears it, but it's like a very low frequency, sort of just random sound that whoever has studied it hasn't been able to find a source for. But I've heard people, and I can feel it very strongly here, because this northern New Mexico is a big caldera and is basically like an ancient field of volcanoes. So the crust of the earth, I think, is just a little bit thinner here due to that. And because of all the seismic activity that's been happening on Earth, because of the sun and the solar cycles and just the communion and the information that's been coming through the sun and the shifting that's happening on Earth because of it. The ionosphere, the magnetism, it's all about geomagnetism and all that. That when I'm, because I'm right outside of the city of Taos on the other side of the gorge, it does, and like the whole yard is filled with volcanic rock. It's so cool. But also that it, when I close my eyes and at certain spots in the house, it feels like it's all moving. The hum only sometimes, but the movement I can feel. It's like being rocked in a hammock. It's very, I've not experienced that anywhere else. And I'm always reminded of the movement of all things, letting yourself go with the flow of the movement of all things. Kayani toyonokorutamisana shini, kinain sanitano toyomnishinikin sat. Oh, and the magnetism is the feminine principle as we see it here in duality. So moving with this awakening of the earth sort of also coming to answer sort of the call of the sun, right? They are speaking to each other. I think that the sun is in, all is consciousness, everything's alive. The sun is very aware of what's happening in the entire solar system. And I believe it is where this ascension information in our solar system is coming from. So but it's your own soul and understand that that's a representation that's outside of ourselves, and it's nothing that's not coming from inside of you. I think that's very, very important. How do to navigate daily surrounded in world of false ego identification, and do you ever feel isolated on staying true to your spiritual path? It's definitely, I don't want to project that it's not easy because that's never helpful. But I also would say it takes an incredible amount of effort. It has taken an incredible amount of effort over the past, I would say, 6 years of just a very dedicated mind training. I use the Course in Miracles because it most resonates with my belief in unity consciousness, but there's many other tools to use and mantras you can come up with spirit, and just all sorts of tools. But yeah, I constant mind training, which has changed my physical life. It has moved people. People have moved out. I'm not friends with the same people I was friends with. I've spent a lot more time alone. My body would be alone. So I would say yes. When I'm viewing it from feeling left out or feeling hurt or longing for connection, I would say yes. I do feel isolated sometimes in staying true to my spiritual path. I don't really wish anymore to sort of go back and be able to talk to people in ways that I used to, I guess. But there are many times when especially when we do this work in healing community and healing the feminine principle and healing the creative, because we're beings that long to be with each other and in communion with each other. But like you're saying, a world that's so identified with ego, that's not real connection. So when you start to really expand into and breathe and live in communion with spirit and communion with life as it is, the essence of life in all things, I do think that the desire to sort of be in situations where people are not also doing that desire just kind of goes away. But at least in my own life, I do still feel that I wish that I had more people who maybe are choosing in the same, that choose the dedication level that I have chosen. But I am like uncommonly dedicated in my mind training, I would say. And it does change everything about your life. It will change everything about your physical life if you change your mind, because your mind is creating your reality. I hope that answered your question, Steve. If you do have any other follow-ups, please feel free to ask. I don't want to project that I don't want to dissuade people from following their spirit path, because there are, navigating it is not, it's not for the ego's world, right? But we still live in our bodies and we still live on earth, but you will be moved in communion with your higher self, and it will be disappointing to your ego, but the more that you practice seeing from your soul, it will feel like purposeful, because if you resonate with this work, we've come to dismantle that ego world. And it's really just about kind of what you want. Inikanian sumaya shanaya nakuna inikana. Sitaya ta koroko masancha kinayan sikani taya to koroko no ishini kinzai si. Shinikana in siti shumosan sit. Creative insecurity. Definitely fears for being yourself and answering things honestly. There's a lot of distortion that comes with sort of telling people what you think they want to hear instead of what you're really believing, even if you feel like it might not be popular, and that distorts your sacral center doing that. So letting that open, knowing that even if your expression seems to fall on silence or not as many people or not what you might have hoped to be received as, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It just means that that's where you are at that time. And the way that I train, we are not our bodies. Just because we are physically alone, we perceive ourselves to be physically alone. We are never alone. And there is no way to actually be alone. And that all comes with dissolving the limitations. And then you become much more capable of reorchestrating the field at more expanded dimensional levels when you don't see yourself from small ones. That's beautiful, Fatima. I think that happened to a lot of people. I think almost everyone I've talked to who is on this kind of spiritual path or spiritual path, and however that manifests for them, really feels like, the pandemic was um, a big swing open. There was a lot. I don't think those acting through ego in manipulation and control had any kind of idea of how that would have pushed people the other way instead of in control. Kiniamayatium tokorokana shanikayan hyumneyan sokinaini atoya kimayani shinikinian soteshaniatasi. I have felt that too, Steve. Feel like you have to play a role to get through job, family, friends, events, and regular conversations. Yeah, I feel like sometimes it can feel like a bit of a performance, or you're being maybe a little quieter. I just tend to kind of be a little quieter, and I don't um, kind of more actively engage just for the sake of having conversation. Um, and I think, the more I am not a specialist in, um, you know, kind of, and I'm not saying this is what you're asking, but like coaching people through this incarnation in terms of like their day-to-day lives and what's happening in your day-to-day life. But I do think from my own experience that the more you kind of follow that path, if it is within your mission on earth at this time to be doing things differently and to be in different places, that spirit will sort of move you around. Like my full-time job is coming to an end, and I'm involved in a sort of consulting capacity, but it felt very clear that it was no longer resonant in my field to hold that job. And um, you know, things sort of move around. But I also feel like, especially being out here where it's a lot of people are living in sort of outwardly spiritual ways in certain contexts, and certainly in this community or in a deeper resonance with the land. I also feel like there is, and this is sort of for you, Steve, there is a way that we walk through, because I'm from New Jersey. I've lived in Manhattan, I lived in Brooklyn, I've lived in Central Jersey again, I lived in Philadelphia, right? Like all incredibly dense places. Um, that because you practice, like you are emitting love, and you might be guided to be in places that you feel like are dense or maybe out of resonance, so that you can sort of emit that resonance. Do you know what I mean? Like you would be in places, and I'm going to say the word teach, but I mean like being as teaching. Like if you are being genuinely yourself in love, which is not, you don't have to preach spirituality to do that, right? It's just if you're just being kind to others, if you're being in resonance with your spiritual beliefs and in the way of being, that not that it's more powerful, but that you can do a lot of good if you're walking in those contexts, in more dense contexts, and it might go in and out of phase. You know what I mean? Like it could sometimes be like I spent the first 30 plus years of my life on the East Coast in incredibly in the most crowded cities and states in the country, you know? And there was a lot of craziness happening there and a lot of craziness that happened to me. And, you know, it doesn't mean you're in the wrong place, and it doesn't mean that you need to live in like a spiritual commune in order to live a spiritual life. I just don't believe that. It doesn't mean that you won't feel called there. It doesn't mean that you won't spend some time in those places. It doesn't, but you never have to. You know, it's not necessarily about the way that it's physically manifesting. It's about your ability to keep peace in yourself. You know what I mean? So I think that the less we kind of, obviously, we all ask these questions, and I still ask these questions of spirit too, because I'm still healing fear and I'm still healing doubt, and I'm still, asking questions about where I'm meant to be and where my people are and all of these things, right? So I'm right there with you. I'm asking these questions also, but I feel like more and more I'm called to just like do what you like, you know? And don't be afraid to let things go. And if you like being where you are, then be where you are, you know? If you feel called to be elsewhere, don't be afraid to follow that urge. You know that everyone's manifested incarnation is different, and there's no one way to be spiritual, and there's no right way. But I have felt, I know exactly what you mean about feeling like you almost are like presenting two different kinds of people in some ways. And sometimes that's depending on the kind of lineage or code or things that you're holding to work through, that can have a lot to do with healing from like persecution wounds and trauma, if that makes sense. Like you don't feel completely comfortable being yourself. I mean, that's what this whole sacral Saturday Saturday is for, right? Like feeling safe to be yourself, because is creation is communication, is love, is just being yourself. And so we want to not feel like that anymore, and not feel like we're playing two different roles, and not feel like we're wearing masks, and just be comfortable being yourself. It doesn't mean you have to tell everybody everything that you believe all the time, right? But that you just let people be who they are, and you are being who you are. But yeah, I mean, I do feel, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that that's always been easy. It's still sometimes not easy. I hope that answers your question, Steve. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you all for being so honest and sharing your lives here. Himayanatritis. Absolutely. I've realized I can do grid work from my bed. That's so true, because there is no place. If we're looking at the most expanded levels, there's no space or time. Those are concepts of our projection. So you can do it from anywhere. You can be, there is nowhere, right? When we're getting to the core of the truth of it all, I think that's exactly the point, right? Is that we are not our bodies. That's how this works, right? I can't go into your body physically to heal it from the inside out, but I see us as one here. I see the entire field as one. And so what I choose to see myself healed is what I offer to you. Then you choose to see that also. And then we expand in that. And that's what I believe unity energy healing is. It is to see all one in all places, right? That's so cool. Yeah, that used to happen to me with like places in Russia and stuff, where I've never been physically in this body, although that is where part of my body came from. Girl, it's so important. I feel like it's always so much of what I want to focus on is like joy, gratitude, having fun, like just like having more fun. You should be having more fun. And that's what the Sacral Saturday is for too, just to get in touch with, like, it doesn't have to be by going out and doing like all of these extreme experiences. And like, obviously travel is a blessing, and you do learn so much, and we are here in form. And so interacting with the form, it's never bad. It's not about anything being bad or good, but that, you know, just the way we enjoy ourselves, that expression, like, enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself, enjoy your mind, enjoy your creativity, enjoy your imagination, enjoy having conversations with yourself and reading and watching things and making art and being a part of art and experiencing art and going outside and digging in the dirt and doing whatever you like. If you don't like those things, if you like computers or math or whatever, just enjoying yourself and your interests, and, letting that guide you just in the day to day, in the moment to moment, that is like the living spirit. We've made it about so many things that don't actually matter to the truth. And so it's all about peace, right? The goal of the work is always peace. There's a beautiful breeze coming in. Kaimaya tonoyan chaya sikanayani notoyanta. Hey, Jason. Thank you for being here. Kiataya kiatia sa ya toya samayon tokani kana ya tisiti shini. Siniani kayani tuyono konimayin chiritis. Yes, like letting the pressure be released from you. Siniandara kora kiatas, love it. Kianaisha mora kinaya nitindi kayan sanitayanai. Sinindio to korokon, tapta konoyon chokonasin, sitaya tono koyamayoto koroko. Sion chokono. Oh, thank you, Jason. Kianakaya sikaya shini kiana tasaya ki kana insoti kaniamaya nikana yato samashonoto tayasa. Kianian siti sini yoyoto korokonamni sin sitayato yasini shini kini. Kuyumiani antisin shinian sayani. Yamayo konoyum sikaya sho suyo sotain suyo sho oyokiano moni san tato yoto yanian to yaki. Hayakanaya nasun jarakaro yasin sanatrani siotosa. I have such an urge to pick up my cat and show you my cat, but she's asleep and I don't want to bother her. But I'm just like in my head, I'm like, pick up your cat. Kiatia karo konosam sakitayati. Hini anaya sansokuya shata sataita sam. Shianaitis. I can pick up my webcam though. Steve. Sleepy cat. Cat cam. That must have been relevant. Steve's a very powerful kitty. Kitasaniman socorro konam shikan sakina insati sinikana kini. Whoa, kiari kiati sayata. Got my other cheetah here. Where is she at? And I love big cats. I love tigers. Obviously lions, very significant, but tigers are like my number one spirit animals. Kimayanian chokorkonas and ravens. Hiatia sikain chiki tayano konam nain tai kianza kana shini sansut. Yoto yono konimana draino yondo kono yunshino tomi sini. Shoyosuki tanyama orokono shamsa isayatos. Shanas nadroi kyoyomo yasini kinam noyondoko rup. Oh, thank you so much for being here. Yes, I'll be here, barring any travel or anything like that. I've got this as a standing sort of live on Saturdays and Tuesday evenings. Hinion sokonam nishi. And I'm just happy that I'm moving into a time space where I have more now it's open to give to this because I did have a full-time job for the entire time that I've been doing this, and now it's moved into it's shifting gears to very part-time work in that industry, and really focusing all of my attention on this practice, this offering. Kiamayono kum sarayitian tau sunchikina santaki. And I really, really appreciate all of your guys' support and for you guys being here and being a part of the channel and watching the videos. And it really does mean so much. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, this feels pretty temporary. I don't know where I will be going. It's a short-term lease because this house is up for sale. And I do think there is, depending on if the house sells, there might be opportunity to stay. But the winter in Taos is a little bit more extreme than in Colorado Springs. And I have a Kia hatchback that is not a 4-wheel drive. So I might go back to Colorado because I loved it. Kinianaitis. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for asking. Kianain sanitin dokorrokomos samsarihitishini sanian sayaki. I do think there's a lot of people who are aligning with a deeper resonance of what they're supposed to be doing. Definitely, I mean, I don't want to blow up anyone's spot about like the full-time job that I've had or what that is and what that company is going through, because it's not my place. But my supervisor has been feeling a lot in the same way of, well, maybe it's time to be doing something different, and I think a lot of people are feeling that way. So if you have, if you feel comfortable, I never want to be giving life coach advice here. This is not what this is for. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to quit your job because that's not feasible for everyone at all times. I don't like, yes, we are guided by spirit. Yes, spirit has our backs, but we really have to be in co-creation with that belief for, so don't, I don't want to be giving any advice that is reckless, but yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are feeling a deep call to get aligned with more clarity on what it is that could be the next expression of, your physicality and what you're offering the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I won't say the name of the company, but a couple of weeks ago, 40 more people got laid off. I mean, there was just a lot of people. And I think you're right, Jason. I think that there's just like, and I'm sorry that happened to you. But there's just so much change with the way that the world is, you know what I mean? Like, we all talk about how the world is changing and how we are working to reorchestrate the field and the next harmonic universe and all of where we're ascending to and all of this, meeting ourselves in ascension, right? But that is going to require the old to fall apart. And so that can look like losing your job. That can look like leaving your job. That can look like moving your house and moving to different places. Like, that's going to be the way it is for a lot of people, I think, at least for the next 2 years. But I do really believe that when you're in alignment with yourself, when you're in alignment with spirit, you are always guided, and spirit never leads you wrongly. And it's you have to believe in yourself and get reconnected to our imagination. And again, that's why I felt so strongly because usually I just like let the videos be what they are, and I'll get impressions for what they are, and based on what I'm working on all of the time in myself. But this felt significant to do a sacral focused healing, because it's so much a representation of how we are making ourselves in the world and co-creating and orchestrating the field and coding the field in our experience, and then living in that experience, right? And because because the old is falling apart and these old ways of being and old structures will just no longer be available to be in, I think it's kind of pivotal and almost urgent right now to reconnect to creating with our imagination and creating in the field the way that we're meant to be in actual spiritual technology, right? So that we are provisioned, we are in the place we're meant to be, and we are in abundance for everyone. And you're, just in the resonant vector space, you're supposed to be in for what you're working on and where you are in your lifetime. So I think, there's a definite call to sort of let go of fear of not being successful in the way of the old world, because we can see how much that's based in distortion and predatory violation and just manipulation and yucky stuff. So, but we have to be witness of that and clear that out of our own self in order to move in more aligned ways physically. So I hope that this was helpful to everyone. I think I'm going to, oh, that's cool. It's so fun to learn about other people, what other people are doing. I'm so glad that we're all here doing this. But I'm going to end it here because I have to eat lunch. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who is watching live and everyone who watches back later, and just massive, massive gratitude and blessings to everyone, and massive love. And remember to take care of yourselves. Remember to bless the world around you. Remember to bless yourself and accept God's love, source's love, creation's love, the love that is as you, so that you may know yourself free. And I hope everyone sleeps well. Oh, today I'm going to finish the next trance meditation, which is for sleep, because that's always something that I have struggled with. So I hope you guys all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.